The Lion King 2 Simba's Pride was an unexpected pleasant surprise. This time around, the focus is on Simba's and Nala's daughter Kira, who falls in love with Kovu, a descendant of Scar. This concept made for well-written drama between the young cubs and their parents, especially with Simba rightfully still holding a grudge for outsiders after Scar killed Mufasa. Whereas the original Lion King took heavy inspiration from Hamlet, Lion King 2 takes inspiration from Romeo and Juliet, with Kiara and Kovu being two star-crossed lovers forbidden to be together due to their family's everlasting grudge. The Lion King 2 is on a whole other level than most other Disney direct-to-video cheapquels, and even the third installment, Lion King 1.5, is a solid entry to the Lion King franchise, making the Lion King franchise one of the best animated franchises of all time. Despicable Me 2 improves everything that didn't work in the original, including having Dr. Nefario go on his own subplot in the sequel, giving Gru a badass girlfriend, and drastically improving the minions, who I thought were significantly less annoying in Despicable Me 2 than they were in any other movie in the franchise. Every villain from the Despicable Me franchise so far has been great, but there was something about El Macho that resonated with me more than the franchise's other villains. Margot was given the most character development, and I liked how she was obsessed with Antonio, who turned out to be a loser and the son of El Macho. When Lucy was first introduced, I found her annoying and thought that the character was too similar to Gru. But once she arrived at the AVL and interacted with Gru, I immediately came around to adore Lucy. Leroy Stitch is often overlooked as just another mediocre Disney direct-to-video cheapquel, but I thought that the film had so much more heart and charm that isn't evident in most other Disney cheapquels. Leroy Stitch is far superior to both Lilo and Stitch 2 and Stitch the Movie, the other two dissatisfying entries in the Lilo and Stitch franchise, thanks to Leroy, who I thought would have been good as a reoccurring character in the Lilo and Stitch TV show. I love that the filmmakers went all out with the huge scale third act, including so many experiments, and found Hamsterville so much more likeable in this than he was in the Stitch TV show. Many of you say that Toy Story 4 wasn't necessary, as Toy Story 3 perfectly wrapped up the trilogy. For the most part, I agree, and kind of thought that a fourth Toy Story was primarily made just so that Disney could make some easy money off Pixar's most successful IP. But I still found myself having a great time with Toy Story 4, even though it's easily my least favourite movie from the outstanding franchise. The filmmakers at Pixar gave Woody the best character arc I've ever seen in a film, having him mentor Forky and come to terms that he's served his purpose of being there for a child, and it's time for him to finally move on. For Woody's arc alone, I enjoyed Toy Story 4 as a Woody-centric spin-off rather than a core Toy Story sequel. The film could have been so much better if the filmmakers could have found a way to give Bonnie's toys more to do, rather than just waiting in the RV for the most part of Toy Story 4. I know I'm in the minority in liking Ralph Breaks the Internet, but as a huge Wreck-It Ralph fan, it was nice to return to the visually stunning arcade world and revisit the extremely memorable characters from Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph and Vanellope's big brother and little sister style relationship remains the best part of the series, but I didn't love that Ralph became overly jealous of Vanellope, which felt out of character for him. I understand that Ralph Breaks the Internet's main purpose was to focus on Ralph and Vanellope's relationship, but I thought that the filmmakers could have given Felix and Calhoun more to do, rather than only give them 5 minutes of screen time just to babysit the racers of Sugar Race. The trailers painted Shank as a villain. I personally preferred her being an ally, but I do think that the film could have benefited from having a proper villain, rather than just a gormless giant jealous Ralph. I did, however, absolutely adore the Oh My Disney scene, and hope that the success of Ralph Breaks the Internet opens the door to a Disney or Princess ensemble movie. After watching Incredibles 2, I immediately considered it a top-tier Pixar film and even preferred it at one point to the original. On rewatching it many times, I could start to see flaws that the sequel had which the original didn't, primarily in Screenslaver being too predictable of a villain and Dash not being given enough to do. Those are just some minor nitpicks, as Incredibles 2 is an extremely enjoyable sequel to one of the best superhero movies of all time, and is one of the best non-Toy Story Pixar sequels. My favourite character in Incredibles 2 was Violet. I appreciate that Pixar responded to the original's criticisms of Violet being the least interesting character by coming full circle, making her the most interesting and relatable member of the family in Incredibles 2. Even if this was at the expense of Dash's lack of character development. This pick might come as a shock to many of you, but I consider Hotel Transylvania 2 one of Sony Pictures Animation's best movies. Maybe it helped that the film came out at the time that I started to become overly obsessed with all things film, but I find Hotel Transylvania 2 to be an extremely entertaining piece of entertainment that doesn't require any thinking to be enjoyed. Hotel Transylvania 2 has the strongest plot from the franchise, having Mavis travel to the human world, whilst Drac attempts to bring out the monster in Dennis, his grandson, in order to keep Mavis from leaving the hotel. Dennis and Winnie's relationship was cute, and Blobby instantly became one of my favourite comic relief characters from an animated movie. I'm not personally a fan of Adam Sandler, but I do enjoy him in the Hotel Transylvania franchise as Drac. But him not returning for Hotel Transformania has me slightly concerned that the film's not going to be as good as the previous 3 installments. Monsters University had no right to be anywhere near as great as it turned out. Monsters University did a magnificent job at expanding the lore of the Monsters universe, and although the film wasn't necessary, it's one of the most fun times I've ever had watching a film, and continues to be consistently entertaining on every rewatch. So I'm certainly not complaining that Pixar decided to go the prequel route rather than the sequel route. Monsters University adds so much more depth to Mike's character that we didn't get to see in the original, and I didn't mind that Mike and Sully reversed roles to where Sully was more of a supporting character for Mike. Toy Story 2 seems to be the least talked about movie in the Toy Story franchise, which makes no sense to me as it's among the greats, as one of the best sequels of all time in my opinion. I believe that Jessie is the second most compelling character from the whole franchise, only behind Woody, and is given the best flashback scene that I've ever seen in a film, other than the Anton Ego flashback scene from Ratatouille. I thoroughly enjoyed Rex's subplot and really liked that Buzz got to take the role as leader when going on the rescue mission to retrieve Woody. Wheezy was also a nice addition to the franchise, but I don't see why he wasn't brought back for Toy Story 3. Speaking of Toy Story 3, the film is in my opinion the best sequel of all time. Everything just worked perfectly in Toy Story 3, from the gripping opening playtime scene all the way to the gut-wrenching final moment as Andy and the toys say one last goodbye. I've never seen a more impactful scene in a film than the incineration scene, where the filmmakers made us think that the toys were going to bite the dust. Overall, I consider Toy Story 3 a flawless masterpiece, and is the only sequel, possibly alongside Toy Story 2, that I'd give a solid 10 out of 10. Thanks for watching the video. Feel free to leave your favourite animated sequels in the comment section below.